But that's not all for Starship news. Did you guys know there's something really, 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 really exciting happening this week?
No.
Some really nerdy payload thing. Oh, no. They may be testing something, right?
No, you were right.
No. I was like, wait, it's not that cool. That's it.
They're putting
the
people up.
Starship.
Oh, no, that's not.
Users Guide 2020, ladies and gentlemen. So this is like the Joe, you said it right in the intro. The owner's manual for Starship came out, basically. And this tells customers, future potential customers, kind of the restrictions and the, what they need to know before they build a satellite for this vehicle, or if their satellite can fit on this vehicle, basically. So it does give you a lot of details. Now, here's the deal. This is basically 6 pages of Starship goodness. Well, 5 if you don't count the title cover. And ones for, like, say, the Vulcan, the Atlas, tend to be about 150 pages. So we'll say this is preliminary. But it still does. Sheet. Yeah, it's just the Cliff Notes version, but it still does give you a few really nerdy things, like the exact dimensions of the actual payload size. But one of my favorite things is this is the first real detailed thing that we've shown how it will deploy payloads in Starship.
Yeah, cool.
How cool is that? So for those listening, the cargo version will basically, and we've seen this before, kind of where it's like an alligator mouth almost opens up from the top. And then how you still get the payload out is then the payload adapter will have to tilt up about 45 degrees. So if the whole opening is, we'll say 70 degrees, and then you tilt your payload up 35 degrees, so it splits the difference, so it doesn't bonk the nose or bonk the the top of the mouth on its way out. And I think that's really cool.
So I guess when they deploy, the whole ship will have to tilt down about 45 degrees so that it stays even as it comes out, right?
Well, I don't think...
otherwise it would like go up in a different trajectory, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but that's like time, like not even a meter per second. It's like 0.01 meter per second, change of velocity. So it's not like a big deal. I mean, yeah,
okay,
if
well,
they're
I just
really
figured
worried...
over the long term that would matter.
Oh, all these satellites always have like station keeping. They always have somewhere to,
nice.
Control their position in space. So, I don't know if it's necessarily, sometimes like Starlink, they just throw those things out the back, and then the satellites figure out how to.
They do literally fling it.
They literally fling them very randomly. So, although it needs to be in a specific orbit, the difference of flinging or ejecting at any different angle really doesn't matter at that point.
Okay,
it's literally about nothing compared to the thousands and thousands of meters per second to be able to get to that point. But the cool thing here is they talk a lot about in this that they could take up multiple 1 to 3 geosynchronous telecom satellites in one launch. So that's awesome because Starlink or Starship could just go up, deploy 3 huge geosynchronous satellites. Each one could be 7 tons because they even included down here, which is nuts. Like that's a big geostationary satellite. 7 tons would be a very big one, and they can send 21 geosynchronous or satellites to geosynchronous transfer orbit. The normal 1800, they call it GTO 1800 is kind of what it's called. But what's funny, I took this number, the number that it takes to actually get 21 tons on a geostationary transfer orbit with Starship, assuming that the Raptor vacuum engines have 380 seconds of specific impulse and the dry mass of Starship is 120 tons. That actually means they need 135 tons of fuel to be able to go from low Earth orbit out to geostationary transfer orbit, meaning that low Earth orbit number, it says mass to orbit. They're saying in the user guide 100 plus. They sandbagged that because in order to do 21 tons to geostationary transfer orbit, this thing needs to be able to launch 156 tons into low Earth orbit. So in other words, Starship will technically be capable of over 150 tons to low Earth orbit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, what about size, though? Like the size of the payload bay as compared to, say, a normal fairing and what we already have up there?
So we've known it's around 1,000 cubic meters. The actual usable volume equates to be a little closer to 800, maybe a little more than 800 cubic meters. For instance, the New Glenn King Everyday Astronaut. I don't know because I just had this chart in here. Here's the different payload fairing sizes. So Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy is 145 cubic meters. So that's what?
Wow.
5 times bigger. The biggest one that will be on the market up into, unless Starship beats it, but if New Glenn is the first one to deploy something out of these massive fairings, their fairings are huge at 458 cubic meters. So so Starship at over 800 will be absolutely nuts.
Wow.
Yeah. And even like the 5 meter fairing that we see on Delta 4 and the currently on the Atlas 5 and stuff, that's about 230 cubic meters. So yeah, this is huge, and not only big in volume but big in payload capability. This thing is capable like on all fronts. Yeah. It's just what happens when you build a huge mega rocket that's extremely efficient. It's absolutely nuts.
And we're going to be seeing a lot of we're going to be seeing payload stuff going up long before people actually go up on that thing.
Yeah, I think they'll be plenty busy just sending up stuff. I think if this thing turns out the way it's supposed to, let me give you my current Tim Dodd gut feelings of the progress for Starship. I think by the end of the year, we'll hopefully see at least a full scale, almost stacking attempt of Both Super Heavy booster and an orbital ready Starship. At this pace, at the fact that they're able to crank out that many rings of a serial number 3 in like literally 2 or 3 weeks, there's no reason they couldn't build a Super Heavy booster stacked in a month worth of weld time and stacking. Obviously, I think at this point the biggest limitation is the number of Raptor engines that they can produce, because they'll need at least 15, 20 on the first Super Heavy booster just to be able to achieve orbit, and at least 3 on the Starship, and it'll be inefficient, but at least they can test out their orbital capabilities. And I think at this point, I think they could go for an orbital test this year. I think what we're looking at right now, seal number 3 is the one being tested on the pad as we speak. I have it pulled up on my other screen here. They're doing a cryo test of that today. They're going to hopefully static fire in the near future, probably within the next week, do a 3-engine Raptor fire, and then hopefully within the next week after that, do a hop. If that hop goes well, they might do a couple hops with it, whatever. And then boom, onto serial number 4. That will be the first one with the wings. That'll do the suborbital stuff, the higher 20-kilometer. I could see that happening. Let's see, we're beginning of April. I could see that maybe happening the beginning of May. And if that goes well, then I think we're on track to see some orbital attempts. And at that point, there could be some explosions and stuff like that. So, but I think by the end of the year we could see an orbital attempt already of Starship, which would
now,
be
are they
insane.
Are they still working, or are they shut in?
They
sheltered?
are still working because they're considered a part of their defense and part of
got it,
like service and stuff like that. It's I don't know if it's Department of Defense or if it's
Space Force. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, they're considered an essential service though. Believe it or not.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hey, thanks for checking us out, guys. I hope you enjoyed this clip from our podcast.
We do a weekly show here on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to Our Ludicrous Future, where we discuss all the things that are going to make our future totally ludicrous.
You can join us here on YouTube or at any of your favorite podcast places. Plus, if you want to get some behind-the-scenes stuff and join a cool community, you can help support the channel at patreon.com. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.